Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to NPTEL's course on communication skills. We are now on third module, and this module particularly focuses on non-verbal communication with special emphasis on body language. And in the past 4 lectures, I've been talking about the importance of body language. I was talking about the origin of it, and then we discussed the debate between whether it is nature or nurture and so on, and then we started analyzing various aspects of body language. Now in this concluding part, we'll particularly focus on one aspect of body language, one aspect of non-verbal communication that has been left out, not discussed in the previous ones, that is chronemics, the particular use of time in terms of non-verbal communication. And after talking about chronemics, I'll try to tell you some of the limitations of this use of body language and how you can use it to enhance a professional image in terms of improving your communication skills. Now, overall, if you look at it, in the whole module on nonverbal communication, we have been talking about nonverbal communication in general, and then the importance of body language in particular, and then I also talked about various functions of nonverbal communication and discussed various types of it. Now in this one, as I said, we are going to talk about the last aspect of nonverbal communication, chronemics, and then I'll just briefly focus on some paralinguistic cues which are used in nonverbal communication, and then I will go for the concluding part in which you should know how to apply this, how to use this to enhance your professional image. Now coming to chronemics, which as I said is the use of time, not using time, deferring time, postponing time, minimal use of time, maximum use of time, using time in a multiple sense, using time in a monistic sense, and all that, the time perception that is associated with nonverbal behavior. That's what we call as chronemics. The study of this time, use of it, it's called as chronemics. Now, generally, before I get into more details, if you look at people arriving early and arriving late, you understand that there is a difference. Okay. The one who would arrive early in the scenario would like to show that the person is sincere. The person may also be the subordinate because the boss is the one who is expected to come late. The person comes in time. There are offices where if the workers go late, they will not be able to get that day's salary. Some part of the salary will be reduced, or in certain cases, if they go late for 3 days, 1 day salary will be cut. So they have to follow the time, they have to go in time. Now look at the person who is coming late, somebody who is arriving late. Now the person who generally arrives late may be using that as a way of showing importance, as a way of showing that he is superior, because probably in a practical sense he has so much to do, and then he cannot devote all his time to certain things. So probably most of the times he is catching up things which are pending, and then obviously is coming late on the one hand. On the other hand, if you look at some politicians, political leaders who are very popular, when they come for speech, they are very much delayed. Apart from practical reasons, they may be just delayed just to show that they are important. And the people who wait, they also wait because they are waiting for a very important person. So here you can see how time is being utilized to show importance. Then even the time taken for an event, that is also quite symbolic. Now look at interview situations. More time with people and with projects that interest the audience or the panel members more. in case of an interview, most of the cases, when the panel thinks that the candidate doesn't suit the post, they would not spend more time on that candidate. It will be just telling the candidate to wind up very quickly, or they will just ask a very quick question and then make the candidate leave in about 5 minutes. And then there are candidates with whom they spend 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Even then, outside there are 40-50 candidates waiting for the interview. One candidate is given maximum time. That's because the panel would like to ensure that this is the right candidate and for the right job that they have kept. Now, you can understand from this that when a time is given more to a person, that also indicates the importance of that event, the action that's given more time. The same thing goes in case of a project that is submitted. In case of a person who submits a project, the boss is not giving more time because he has certain perception about the person, thinking that he has not worked enough. And then there is another person who submits the project, the boss gives more time. Same thing goes with regard to even approval of certain request. Even if it is a leave application, when a particular person applies for leave, the boss grants it immediately. When another person applies, the boss is not granting, is delaying, is not even looking into the project. So the time that the boss takes indicates the level of interest that the boss has and the perception that the boss has with regard to the particular person, whether it's in terms of submitting a project or a leave application. All accounts for time perception. Then this is what I want to tell you in terms of taking time to respond. So that is also symbolic. The boss taking time to respond to requests, that is also symbolic. The time of event can have symbolic overtones. For example, when it is a particular festival, so let's say it's Diwali, then there are some movies which are planned to be released on that particular day. Another function like Eid, some particular movie is planned to be released on that day. Now, why is it so? The time that is planned, they are sure that if you release on that particular day, this is meant for success. So that day has certain connotations, maybe it brings more audience to the theatre and so on. So the same thing you will find that even when the company would like to launch a product, they would again go for a market survey of the most appropriate time in which they should launch the product. They would even launch a product after a year of survey, after a year of advertisements that sort of gives preview about the product before they actually even launch it. So that's about time in general, but how is it that interesting you? How should that concern you? If you want to become a professional, you should know that basically there are two perspectives with related to chronomics in relation to time. What are the perspective? One is this monochronic perspective and the other one is polychronic perspective. What is monochronic perspective? In monochronic perspective, time is seen as a single unit, okay, as a compartment, as a systematic categorical unit. Now, it's a scarce resource. In monochronic perspective, it is a scarce resource, so you have to use it very carefully. It should be rationed, it should be controlled, and you must have heard of sayings like time is money, time is life. So you waste time, you are wasting your life, you are wasting your career. So everything is associated with time. Success is associated with how better you utilize your time. This is monochronic perspective. In polychronic perspective, time is flexible. So time is seen in a kind of collective perspective. Time is not compartmentalized. And then people see time as it comes to them. They use it for the maintenance of harmonious relationships. So if somebody has monochronic perspective, the person would give appointment and expect that somebody reaches the place in time. Somebody with polychronic perspective, even if the person is not reaching there in time, will not get angry, or even without appointment, if somebody is just dropping in, the person will not get angry. So you can see the difference. In the second level, harmonious relationship is given more importance. In the first level, time itself is given more importance. Okay, let's look at more in terms of the cultural difference that this time would indicate. Americans actually use this monochronic or monochromatic aspect of time. And if you look at Middle East and Latin Americans and even most of the South Asians, even in India, the general perception about time is polychromatic or polychronic. How does it make a difference? When it is monochromatic, there is emphasis on schedules. The whole event is planned much in advance. 5-year goals are verbalized, written clearly, and the schedule is planned accordingly. Appointments are given all the time, and you cannot violate that appointment. You have to wait for that appointment. Segmentation is done. So the whole chunk of work is divided into segments. Division of labor is followed. And apart from that, promptness. If appointment is given, it is expected that the person comes before time, in time, but never comes late. Late arrival is not excused here. So this is monochromatic perception, and generally people who are used to this kind of environment, this kind of setup, what they do is they do one thing at a time. They concentrate on one job. Now when I see this, you can understand that this has its own merits and demerits. There are certain jobs which we need to pay attention, which we need to focus, we need to finish it immediately before we go to the next one. And then there are certain other jobs which actually needs a polychromatic kind of perception. Now that job need not be done immediately, but at the same time should be done then and there whenever you get time. So it's better at that situation you juggle at 2-3 jobs, and then you give some time here, some time there, and then focus on one thing in between. Now this, if you have a polychronic time perception, you will be able to do, and you will be able to do it without any conflict. Now if you look at culturally, as I said, generally the Middle East and Latin Americans use this, most of the South Asians use this. Now what is it? It's characterized by several things going on at once. Simultaneous commitments, multitasks, several things going on at one single time. Now the disadvantageous part of this, highly distractible. Focus is less, concentration is less, work efficiency can be reduced because the person can be distracted easily, and then overall the person considers time commitments casually. Now when I say this, how a conflict can happen between these two perceptions? Let us say the boss says 9 o'clock. Now the boss is of polychronic perspective, and the person who is supposed to meet the boss, the visitor, is coming from a monochronic perspective. Now when the boss says 9, the person reaches the venue at 8:45 and reports to the receptionist. The receptionist smiles, and then she says, no, when the boss says 9, he means 9:30, 9:45, it could be even 10. And if he is busy, he may not even come. Now this would shock the one who is coming from monochronic time perspective. And conversely, if the boss has the monochronic time perspective and the visitor is somebody who is casual about the commitment and comes late or comes very late or even thinks of just postponing it, the boss will be very unhappy and he will just cancel the appointment and he will not give time again. Not that he doesn't want to give time again, but that he is already overbooked with other appointments. He cannot actually squeeze in any other appointment once the time is missed. So you could see the difference professionally. So if you want to work in a professional environment, when you go and join in a job, just identify what kind of perspective is generated there, irrespective of the cultural background. Now we are living in a global scenario, so multinational companies are there everywhere, and then the time perception is differing from different organizations, whether they are in South Asia or in America. So even in America, when it is run by a owner who has this polychronic time perspective, so he will excuse you if you go late, or he will excuse if he is busy with something, and vice versa. So keep that in mind, and then identify the time perspective, identify the time perspective that your boss has, your higher authority has, and then modify accordingly. Initially it is difficult, but then it's important that you modify your own perception according to the expectation in the work environment, and that will ensure you success, or at least it will avoid miscommunication, at least it will avoid heartburns in the process of communication. So keep that in mind. Now, as a concluding part, let's think about para language, or something that's called as meta communication, which is not generally noted under non-verbal communication, in the sense we are talking about body language, chronemics, proxemics at length, but nevertheless we also should know that this is also forming a very basic part of non-verbal communication. What are these aspects? One, voice. Now you can just see whether the voice is commanding, whether it is vibrant, whether it is thick voice, whether it is flat voice. In terms of voice, you can even look at the voice dynamics. Intonation. No two intonations are alike, which means the person stretching on a particular sound will differ depending on the way he is brought up, depending on the way he learnt the language. And two different persons do not stress, do not emphasize the same word in the same manner. So intonation itself will speak for the person's other aspects of communication, particularly non-verbal. Then rhythm. So here the accent that is used. So certain syllables are given accent, some would lengthen the vowels, some would shorten the vowels, and so on. And the continuity of speech. Some would speak brokenly in uneasy splashes of word groups, and some would speak continuously. The speed of speech, the pace itself. So some speak above the expected speed, some speak below certain socialized speeds. Now all again is indicating some kind of psychological thing that's happening at a non-verbal level. Pronunciation. So some are very careful about pronouncing certain words, enunciating them correctly. Some do not care about pronunciation. That also speaks for the person non-verbally. The use of vocabulary. So the whole personality sometimes is reflected in the choice of words. A person who is using lot of abusive words, and the person who is very careful in the choice of words, somebody who is using only pleasing words, pleasant words, is most liked by general public, and somebody who uses swear words, 4-letter words very commonly, generally public is intimidated by this kind of person. So the vocabulary that is used will also indicate the personality. Again, it's a meta form of communication, para language, which is not actually language, but the way you are using it. So that's also speaking about the personality of the person who uses it, and overall style in communication. So all these things contribute to style, the vocabulary, the speed in which you deliver, the pronunciation. So that also gives a kind of style to the person himself. The same matter, same idea communicated by one person is liked by so many people, and the same idea communicated by another person, people dislike it. All amounts to style. Okay. So keep this in mind when you are also trying to use this as enhancing your non-verbal communication aspect. Now, towards the conclusion, the other important part of non-verbal communication, interpreting non-verbal clues. Now, when you interpret, you also learn how to apply them. We talked about Mehrabian, who put lot of emphasis on non-verbal communication and who said that even almost about 90% is actually non-verbal. Now, Mehrabian identified three primary dimensions in terms of interpreting non-verbal clues. He talked about immediacy, he talked about arousal, and he talked about dominance. Now, by immediacy, he meant also the kind of cues we use to communicate our liking and pleasure, which means what we like is something that makes us non-verbally open, non-verbally close, and what we do not like actually distances us from that object non-verbally. So, this is what he said, look for immediacy cues. So, what does it mean? We move towards persons and things we like and avoid or move away from those we dislike. Generally, we instinctively decide whether we like someone or not and then later find reasons to back up our feelings. So, even without knowing, we feel quite comfortable when we like somebody and we move close towards the person. And when we do not like a person, what we do is we slightly move away from the person. We feel intimidated by the person. So, this is what Mehrabian means by immediacy. How close you are and how distant you are. That can indicate the level of relationship, the proximity of relationship. Then arousal. By arousal, he did not mean sexual arousal. What he meant was the responsiveness, the ability to respond. How do you respond? Okay, how animated do you become? So, that is what he meant by arousal. So, which is similar to animation, and this simply means that if you are interested in a person, we tend to be more animated, we become lively, we become fully alive. A flat tone of voice and very little movement indicate a lack of interest. So, this is what he meant by arousal, responsiveness. So, we respond favorably, we respond with full of blood, vitality when we like somebody or when we like an event that is going on, and when we do not like it, so the voice becomes flat and then the whole face controls expressions, there is no expression on the face and it is indicating boredom or disinterest. So, arousal is indicating responsiveness. And the third aspect that he talked about is dominance. He also said that when you interpret non-verbal cues, look for this aspect which is indicating balance of power. Who is whose superior between boss and subordinate? Who is controlling the relationship in case of husband and wife, in case of any couple, who is controlling the relationship, who is holding power? So, this he says can be seen by getting the non-verbal cues. You can get information about status, about position, and for example, people who have high status, they have relaxed body posture. So, you will find them between two of one high status and another one of low status. The person with high status may sit on the chair in a very relaxed manner. The low status one may have very firm, frigid kind of body posture. The lowest one you will find in South Asian customs will be even not sitting on the chair, will be just sitting down, will be sitting with folded hands with some bow to indicate respect, or even while standing they do not stand straight, they gently bow to show that they are subordinate, they are showing some respect, and the other person is just relaxed, he just sits on the chair in the most relaxed position. So, this indicate higher status between the two. The second aspect of interpreting non-verbal cues, he said that apart from looking at immediacy, arousal and dominance, he said look for 3 C's. What did he mean by this? He said look for 3 C's, that is context, clusters and change. Context, cluster and change. Now, context, what did he mean by context? He said that when you look at something separate it from the context and you try to locate with the context, then you actually get the real picture. The example that I gave, for instance, I said that husband driving a car and wife sitting on the back seat on that particular day when she usually sits on the front seat. Now you need to look at the context before jumping into conclusion that they have quarreled. Now the context could mean that it's so hot to sit on the front, so she has come to the back, or she has a physical problem that the doctor has advised to take the back seat and not sit on the front one, and so on. There are other interesting examples, context, where environment plays a very crucial role. So in a open hall, or let's say in an auditorium, a boy sits somewhere in the middle, the girl comes and then sits somewhere in the corner. She sits there for some time and then she gets up and moves and sits almost close to the boy. Now the boy should not jump into the conclusion, taking non-verbal cues, should not jump into the conclusion that okay, this means immediacy, this means proximity, she is coming close to me, this means she is interested in me. Now the context may be different, in which she sat just near the door. Maybe one reason she is getting so distracted. Another reason obviously could be that she has a cold and the AC is already generating lot of coolness and she doesn't want to sit so close to the AC. Since she didn't want to sit close to the air conditioner, she just came and sat somewhere in the middle. It so happened that that was the only seat left and then the boy was sitting next to it. This is context. Now the boy should not jump into conclusion that the girl is interested in him. So that's what Megrabian said, look at the context. Now once you ascertain the context that there is no external factor that's determining this non-verbal behavior, then you can interpret cues based on the universal reading of it. Then he said cluster. Once you ascertain it, cluster. He said don't isolate one cue, group them. For instance, somebody who would tell a lie would try to put the hand over the mouth, would try to avoid eye contact, would do something with the eye, may wriggle, may do something with the hair. Now look at the cluster, look at the whole group of things, and then he says then you just form the interpretation. Then he also said look at change. What did he mean by change? Let's say the worker who comes every day to the office and it's an informal office, shakes hand with the boss and says good morning and is indicating warmth and friendliness. Now the previous night the worker has stolen some money. Next day he didn't want the boss to know that he is the one who has stolen the money. Now change in behavior. He comes, instead of shaking hands, he says namaste, or he shakes hand, and till now it happened to be a very firm handshake. On that particular day it happens to be a dead fish handshake. He's just giving and taking it out very quickly. Now the boss, if he is a non-verbal expert, should analyze, understand that this is a change. Why the hand is cold? Why he is not giving a firm handshake? And then now he should try to cluster with other change in behavior and then look at the context, and then he can non-verbally base the interpretation in a very judicial manner. Now this keeps you on a very safe terrain when you are able to look at the previous cues in terms of context by clustering them and by noting the change that happens in the non-verbal behavior. You will be able to make more or less a very good judgment about non-verbal behavior. Now let's move slightly ahead and then focus on one aspect of non-verbal communication, and let's see how you can slowly become an expert, becoming a non-verbalist, non-verbal expert. And one thing that generally experts do is that they are able to identify people who are genuine and people who are fake, people who are honest and people who are phony, people who speak the truth and people who are liars. Okay. And you just see, and there is a game also in which the person will say something for 2 minutes, and within 2 minutes he will also tell one lie. It may be a story, but he will also tell one lie. The person at the other side should be able to identify the lie and tell that it's a lie. Now, how can the other person know? The other person can use this nonverbal cues. When the person tells a lie, there is some change in behavior, some change in intonation, pronunciation. He wants to hide something, he doesn't want to say that loud. Something he does which is different from the truth that he was speaking. Now, apart from that, there are certain other tips in terms of body language changes. Sweating, for instance, especially if the person is very new in telling a lie, the person will sweat profusely. Biting of fingernails or chewing of the inside of the mouth while saying something, especially when it is a lie. Drying up of the mouth. The person will feel like drinking so much of water and the person feels that the mouth is getting dried up. Then covering the mouth, especially small children will do that very often. They will try to cover the mouth when they tell a lie. Rubbing the nose continuously, because again the person knows that he is doing something dishonest. Now, all these things you will note if they are bad liars or if they are inexperienced liars, if they are amateurs, or they are lying to somebody whom they know very well and they are feeling embarrassed, they are feeling discomforted when they are telling this lie. But some are excellent liars and can mask all of the above. And then we call some as professional liars, or some by profession has to hide truth. Lawyers, for instance, sometimes they know the truth, but professionally they have to hide the truth, or they have to speak something which is not the truth. It may not be a lie even, sometimes it may be a lie. It may be truthful from a different perspective, but they know that they are distorting the truth. Now, in that context, they have to use a face that's not revealing any of these non-verbal cues. They should not sweat, they should not bite their fingernails. It will be easily observable by the judge and others. The juries could observe it very quickly. So, they are so trained to control their non-verbal behavior. In that case, what should one do? Professional liars have refined their body gestures. So, what should one do when they are so refined? Now, this is where you should observe combinations of behaviors that a person is displaying. You should look for cluster, you should look for change. And the ability to tell whether someone is lying depends on many factors that must be observed rather than just one factor that can completely mislead you. Just somebody has covered his mouth, so immediately you cannot say he is telling a lie. Maybe he feels that it's giving a bad smell and he wants to avoid it. Maybe he was about to cough, about to sneeze and he wanted to avoid it. So, it could be some physiological problem also. So, you cannot jump into conclusion just by looking at one symptom. Then, differences in behavior from the normal behavior, change is something that you should note. Variation in the normal eye contact duration. So, if somebody is honest, the person doesn't mind first of all maintaining eye contact. Then the duration, the person doesn't maintain for a long time, it means that the person is having something to hide. Whereas the person who is normal and he has nothing to hide will not mind about the duration. The more you look at the person will also respond. There is no problem. And then tendency to look up. Sometimes maybe they are cooking up something, some story. So, when you talk, instead of maintaining eye contact, they will just look up. They will look somewhere, they will look beyond you and then they will try to tell something. They will not maintain eye contact. Then hand gestures or lack of gestures. As I said, shaking the hand, not shaking it, or just saying namaste instead of shaking hand, or just saying good morning and not even touching, and all these changes should be noted. If you look at police interrogators, what they do is that they put the suspect's body in full view, something like what I have showed in this picture. Here even I have put the person with dress. Actually they may even remove the dress. Okay, keep the person with the minimum one and keep the suspect's body in complete view. Now when the person's body is in complete view, and when it is even taken on photo, it's videographed, it can be even analyzed at a later stage. You listen to what the person says and you see the behavior, change in behavior. And if you find any discrepancy, note that verbal component which is going with or against the non-verbal component that is emanating from the person. So that's how they judge. And you will see most of the intelligent interrogators, very smart police officers, they'll just by looking at you, they know that you are innocent. And just by looking at somebody, they know that the person is suspicious and is a criminal. How many times you have observed this? If you are I'm assuming that you are the honest guy and you always take tickets in the train and you are always afraid of the system, and then you are very honest, you are God fearing. And how many times when you have the ticket in the pocket, most of the times when they look at you, they don't ask you the ticket. And then somebody who is just trying to sneak away, somebody who is coming just next to you, they'll catch that guy and then they'll particularly ask that fellow, and the fellow doesn't have a ticket. How is that they found? Were they scanning them from a distance? How do they do that? Mostly from the non-verbal behavior. They are so trained, so used to looking at the change in non-verbal behavior, and immediately they understand that this fellow is hiding away and they catch the person. Now overall, if you ask the question, which is the best way to lie then, if at all you have to lie, non-verbal experts say that the best way to lie is using the telephone, because in face-to-face situation you are always likely to be caught. You are always likely to feel embarrassed if you are telling lie before a person whom you know very well. Now having said this, if the person at the other end is a non-verbalist and if he is an expert, even when you are lying on telephone, he can or she can understand that you are telling a lie. The best bet is avoid telling a lie. Use your non-verbal as good as possible and avoid any kind of dishonest thing. So that will help you to develop you as a good communicator in an ethical sense also. Now to become an expert non-verbalist, what should you do? Keep watching people in action particularly. Watch videos which are produced. BBC for instance has lot of videos produced on body language, especially analyzed by experts. They have spent lot of time, expertise on this, analyzing famous political persons, political situations, which are very important in terms of analyzing certain results. Now one famous video shots that were being discussed was during the trial that was happening for Saddam Hussein. Was he accepting defeat or was he still not accepting it? It was one debate. The debate was very easily resolved by non-verbalists, and what they said, like they had analyzed various postures of Saddam Hussein in the court, and they were saying that he was using a pencil, he was pointing it to the jury and all that. So using that kind of pointed gestures were indicating that he was still showing that he is the one who is powerful and is not accepting defeat. But then there are pictures like this, okay, and then overall when they looked at the sloped shoulders, then they said that whatever he did, this is indicating that he has sort of accepted defeat. So look at this kind of videos which are produced, which actually analyze, and then despite the occasional fighting gestures, the overall conclusion, looking at this particular posture indicates that he has accepted defeat. Now, there are other interesting videos in which, for instance, the president from a powerful country and the prime minister of a third world country, both are trying to talk to each other, and the president from the powerful country approaches this one and the other one sort of recedes, goes back. The president approaches the other person, retreats, recedes, keeps going back. Now what happens in this case? The other person from the third world country is actually feeling bit intimidated, and the one who is coming is feeling very confident. So much so, the whole video is showing as if they are in a kind of hide and seek game. One is chasing, the other one is running. But then you can understand non-verbally the psychological makeup of both the persons. So, if you want to become a non-verbalist, apart from analyzing your own behavior, start analyzing the behavior of famous leaders, even teachers, even your friends, in situations where they have to sometimes blurt out certain things, they have to tell a lie, or when they are saying something very honest. See the facial expressions and see also the recorded videos which are analyzed by experts. So one good site is BBC. Try to go to the site and then look at that. Now towards conclusion, I should also caution you about the challenges of studying nonverbal communication, especially when nonverbal communication goes wrong. What do you do when things go awry using your nonverbal communication? When body language goes bad? When will it go bad? If you are not able to confront the challenges, it will go wrong. What are the challenges? Now look at the first one. Nonverbal messages are often ambiguous, which means it's not having a one-to-one correspondence in meaning. When I am doing something with my hair, it does not mean only one thing. It can mean more than one thing. It's ambiguous. It means something, it doesn't mean something. It implies so many other things. So, it's known on the one hand to the person who is displaying them. It's very difficult for the other person at the audience side to understand them on the one hand. On the other hand, we also talked about gestures which are not even known by the person who is emanating them. Some are coming from subconscious thoughts. Some people have difficulty expressing their emotions. This is another problem. For example, some people, even when they are happy, they keep a very frozen facial expression. They are not able to show cheerfulness on their face. Maybe environmental setup, maybe the family setup. So they have not enjoyed happiness in their life. They are looking tragic all the time. But they may be very happy inside. So you cannot form any conclusion based on non-verbal expression on the face. Then someone who is feeling happy may not even smile outwardly, may not laugh, may even just control it, may think of showing a very matured outlook. So you cannot jump into conclusion because this is ambiguous. It means sometimes more than one thing. Sometimes it does not correspondingly mean what you expect that it should mean. One challenge. The second one, non-verbal messages are continuous. So they do not come at one go, stop, let you interpret the message and then the next one comes. No, they are continuous. Gestures, what the person does with the hand, how the person is standing, talking, moving, and at the same time facial expressions. You look at the hand, something happens in the face, something happens in the eyes, something he does with the hair. Eye contact can all flow from one situation to next. So many variations happening within this small gamut of expressions. Then it's possible to stop talking. So you cannot just shut your eyes and ears and think that communication is over. But it's generally not possible to stop non-verbal cues. You have to observe even when the person is pausing, like what's happening now in terms of non-verbal communication. It's continuous. it's not stopping. So it's ambiguous, it's continuous. So these are actually challenges. And the third one is it's multi-channeled, which is making it much more complicated. So you cannot decide to attend to focus on only one aspect of non-verbal communication at one time. You cannot say that I will look at only eye contact and then decide whether the person is confident or not. Or you will not say I will look at only the feet, I will look at only the movement of the legs. No, you have to get all the cues. It's multi-channel. It can use face, it can use eyes, it can use hands, it can use the whole body movement. Even the way the person is dressed, accessories will also tell you something. So it's multi-channeled. But there are other interesting things. Like one researcher believes negative non-verbal command attention before positive non-verbal messages. So as I said before, if somebody is angry, the anger shows on the face much more quickly than the fact that somebody is happy or content or satisfied with something. So negative emotions one can see, but then again negative emotions combined with so many other factors. Why the person is angry, why the person is, especially short-tempered persons, why the person is just angry, and it appears immediately illogical, no reason. And then you need to take cues from the non-verbal behavior by looking at the cluster, looking at the change, looking at the context. You should understand. But again, the next challenge, the most important challenge, which I will even spend a complete module on it, is the fact that non-verbal interpretation is culture based. What is good in one culture is bad in another culture, and the whole gesture itself is modified, controlled, governed by cultural patterns, which is embedded in the conscious and subconscious thinking. So positive gestures in one culture, which is used, accepted universally in that culture, can be seen obscene, negative. So thumbs up gesture in the US, good, indicating victory, but in certain other culture it has certain other connotations also. So one has to be careful. And then the caution overall, once you are aware of these aspects, the main point is don't apply one piece of information as meaning everything. Just looking at one aspect of non-verbal and making a sweeping statement, that you should avoid. Then you must be observant of all the possible factors that may be contributing to the other person's movements, including things like temperature, climate and weather. As I said, the air conditioning in a room may make a girl leave the corner seat and go and sit next close to a boy who is sitting in the middle. The boy should not jump into the conclusion that the girl is interested in him. So two people talking just near a cooler, okay, and then let's say there is a drizzling, okay, there is a cooling plant, and from there is a drizzling effect. The water is coming and then sometimes falling on the ice. So what has happened, these two girls have slightly, the one who is just facing the water that's drizzling has slightly narrowed her eyes, closed her eyes. The other person's eyes are wide open. Now from a distance when you look at it, you should not jump into the conclusion the person who has closed the eyes, she is telling a lie. No, she is closed because it's actually obstructing to look straight. The water drops are coming and just falling on the ice directly. So look at the temperature, look at climate, weather, look at the environment before you form an opinion based on non-verbal communication. Then overall, don't jump into conclusions. Be aware of your own surroundings and familiarize yourself with the other person's habits. It takes years sometimes to exactly pinpoint something in terms of non-verbal communication. It's rather easy to identify change in people with whom you are familiar with the behavior in day-to-day communication. It's difficult rather in a stranger. Then look at the gestures, signs and body language for quite some time before making any assumptions. But having said this, all the time, instead of just looking at only the verbal component, whenever you start analyzing the non-verbal, you are always at a cutting edge. But the caution is just thrown to you to indicate that even when you use that, do not use in isolated sense and do not use only for that. Now, look at this picture. Is it indicating aggression? At first glance, the pup appears to be showing aggression. You may think that it's aggressive. But then when you look very closely, you will see that the eyes are closed. In aggression, the eyes will be wide open and sometimes it becomes red, change in color. Ears are back. In case of aggressiveness, the ears will be straight or protruding as if it's going to attack. Now, when you look at all these things, you understand that the pup is actually yawning. It's feeling sleepy, so it has opened its mouth wide. Now, from a distance, it can look that it's aggressive. So, if you look at only this and then form a conclusion that it's going to bite me, actually it's going to sleep. It's feeling very tired. The same kind of judgment you will also make in terms of human beings. Just be careful. Apart from just looking at the facial expression and gestures, take note of clothing and appearance. Here again, do not just go by appearance. Because on the one hand, clothing and appearance as non-verbal communication will tell you something about the person's identity, age, gender, status, and even the socio-economic class and race. This is on the one hand. But on the other hand, do not just jump into conclusions just by the cloth and appearance, because non-verbal communication is not an exact science. There is no one-to-one correspondence 100% maintained in all this kind of cues. It's easy to make a bad or false first impression based on what you wear and how you look. A person who is not dressed neatly, a person who has not shaved his beard for a long time, unkempt hair, may be looked at as a very kind of uneducated, illiterate, uncouth person, unsophisticated person. He is not even allowed to enter into the auditorium by the gatekeeper, but then from the stage he is being invited as the chief guest. He goes there and then audience applaud him the moment he starts speaking, and you come to know that he is a very renowned scientist. He doesn't have time for taking care of his appearance, that's all, or he doesn't care about it, because he is so at a very highly emanated status, he doesn't bother for all these things. So do not jump into conclusion just by looking at the cloth and appearance. Having said this, to become a kind of expert in terms of nonverbal communication, how do we control our body language? Is it really possible? Especially, I was talking in one of the previous lectures about the involuntary dimension of body language, which I said is quite dangerous. The voluntary dimension, I said, is fine, you are aware of it, but the involuntary one, you are not actually aware of it. Now, how do we control it? In the first instance, the best way to control body language is to be aware of it. So, what do? Record your own pictures, images, you in animation, record your friends, keep analyzing. Look for the negative communication that's emanated using body language and try to create an awareness in your mind. So, the next time, for instance, if you have a gesture of always playing with your button or playing with your pen, and once you note it and once you are aware of it, you can tell your mind when your hand goes to the button or to the pen, you can tell, don't touch it, take your hand away from that. So, that awareness will help you control it. Then, some people have extremely open body language, they are very open, maybe they are extroverts and they are generally trained that way, and others have learned to control their emotions. Okay. They do not so easily do that. The first trick an actor learns is how to express emotion with his body, not just the face but with the whole body. Now, when you want to become a professional, suppose you are interested in something, what this point is saying is, just like an actor, try to emulate the gestures. In an interview, if you want to be successful, emulate success in terms of your enthusiasm. Show cheerfulness on the face. Mirror the gestures. Okay. So, you know that to incline on the back is indicating that you are not that much interested, but slight inclination towards the forward. The sprinter's gesture in terms of standing position. So, these are all indicating that you are rather interested in the communication aspect of what's happening there. So, that can indicate that you are controlled and polished in terms of your non-verbal communication. So, sometimes you can avoid, and it's also possible to turn your back on someone and make them aware that you are angry or sad. So, by just cutting off the non-verbal, you can even just avoid it, and then when you stop indicating that you are not communicating non-verbally, not maintaining eye contact, not smiling, the other person knows that you are angry or you are sad. So, you can use it effectively, you can use it to control and learn how to control it by repeatedly watching your own behavior performance, which are taken on video. Take feedback from your friends. Now, coming to the other point before we conclude, why should we learn body language? The final question. Now, one thing about body language is, even when somebody is faking one's ideas using verbal communication, it's difficult to fake body language for a long period of time. It's not easy to pretend to somebody something that one is not using body language. So, you can catch cues very easily. That's why you should know it. Then, it's good to learn and to use positive open gestures to communicate with others and to eliminate gestures that may give negative signals. To become a professional, know the positive ones, eliminate the negative ones. You will feel more comfortable to be with people and can become more acceptable to them once you know good body language. People will automatically accept you in the group where you want to be. So, these are some important reasons why you should know them, and let's have a quick look at what is positive body language and what should you develop as a good communicator. Smile, open posture, not the closed ones, frigid ones, forward lean, touch, permissible touch where it could be appreciated, and knowing when not to touch also. Eye contact, knowing when to maintain the duration, when not to maintain the duration. Gestures and nods. So, generally these are basic ones which will indicate that the one is having lot of positive body language cues. And there are some points you can ponder over as a concluding thought. One, as I said in the first lecture, remember that you can never not communicate, in the sense, if you think that you have stopped your verbal, the non-verbal begins. So, keep that in mind. Communication is not over when you finish delivering your message. Even when you pause, even when you stop, the audience will still watch you non-verbally. Never say anything that cannot improve upon silence. So, use words only when they are absolutely necessary. Use non-verbal much more powerfully than words. If you look at competent communicators, the ones who are very competent, what they do is they are good at monitoring their non-verbal message and messages from others. So, they are very good in coding, decoding, encoding non-verbal from their side as well as from the other side. And then competent communicators develop a wide range of non-verbal behaviors to use in different situations. In formal, they have one set of behavior. In informal, they have another set. When they are in holiday, they have different sets, and so on. Then, competent communicators pick up and follow up on the non-verbal cues from others. People do not often honestly tell us what they are thinking and feeling, so they take cues from them and then they moderate their behavior and use it in the communication process accordingly. Competent intercultural communicators are more tolerant and accepting of differences in nonverbal communication among cultures. That means when they look at a gesture which is strange, they do not immediately laugh. they control, or they know that it's not a laughing thing. They are more matured in developing relationships using non-verbal. Now, just as a concluding one, assuming that you have become a non-verbalist, if you quickly analyze this picture, what do you find? Now, very quickly, if I ask you the question, who is interested in whom? Who is interested in what? If you analyze, for a minute, you just analyze, and then my answer is, she is more interested in the bartering that's happening. Okay, probably he has something, this may be a primitive kind of thing. He has some flour or something, some food item to be exchanged, maybe with some stones, some pebbles, whatever it is. Now she is bargaining, but she is more interested. If you look at the hair, we said that if it is on the front, more interested. And then the lean is indicating again she is more interested. Look at his hand, he is not bringing it to forward, he is less interested. If you look at her feet, it's more protruding towards this person. And there are overall, if you look at this, she is more interested in the trade than this guy, is bit skeptical, is quite not very open, and or maybe he is interested in a better bargain. But overall, if you look at it, you can easily understand this person is more interested than this one. So this is how I want you to look for non-verbal cues and form judgment. Now, some references. There are so many video materials available on the net, but then if you look at the basic ones, Alan Piaget's body language is a fundamental one. It's available in various editions, even the local Indian one, it's available in Delhi publication. And then there's a recent book on complete nonverbal communication, studies and applications by Ninja Joe Moore and others. It's published from New York, Oxford University Press. And then there are these sites which I leave it to you. You can just look at it and then check it. And overall, I hope that once you are able to follow these things, you become a non-verbalist, you become an expert in non-verbal communication. And I suggest that you should use it in a very professional context to enhance your professional image and enhance your possibilities of getting success in all communication situation, whether it is personal relationship or it is professional relationship. So, thank you and wish you all the very best for success in all kinds of communication situations using non-verbal behavior.